Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. Looks like most of us are showing up. Okay, and we have Councilor Wolf. Looks like we have everybody. Good evening, it's 6:01. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the October 6th, 2020 regular meeting of the Manchester Springs City Council. First item of business is Pledge of Allegiance. So if the city clerk would please display the American flag. If you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Council members Judith Chandler.
Present.
Steve Bremner.
Here.
John Shada.
Here.
Susan Wolbrook.
Here.
Julie Wolf.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune.
Present.
And Mayor John Graham.
Here. Thank you. Okay. Next item is approval of the agenda. I believe you all have a copy of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, and I see a hand from Julie. Julie, is that a second?
Sure.
Second. Okay, we have motion a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Show your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next we have public comment on non-agenda items. Does the city clerk, do we have anybody who wants to speak to council?
If I could ask the,
Judy, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I can't hear you guys. I'm going to unplug and drive to the office because.
Okay.
You're muted right now. Okay.
Okay, and so I would just ask anyone in the public, if they wish to speak right now, if they could use the raise hand tool. But at this moment, I do not see any hands being raised. And I haven't received any sort of requests via email for speaking.
We'll give folks just a minute.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead then, and we will have to assume that there's no public comment this evening. Next item is the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar, 3 appointments. Appointment of Barbara Bunn as an alternative member of the Housing Advisory Board. The second item is appointment of Chris Brinkner as an alternate member of the Housing Advisory Board. Third item is approval of mayor's reappointment of Ann Nichols to the Urban Renewal Authority Board, and the Parks and Facilities Capital Improvement Plan be authorizing a contract. Do we have a motion to accept and approve the consent calendar?
I move approval.
So move that we approve the consent calendar as written.
We have motions from Councilor Shada, Councilor Chandler, and Councilor Wilbrook. So I think we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next item, first item, new business item G1, presentation of the proposed 2021 budget and 5-year capital improvement plan. And I believe we have Becca available. Julie, is Becca out there?
Yes, I'm bringing her over now. And this is actually under H, under business.
What? Sorry, on my agenda it says G. My apologies, though.
Mine too.
Yeah, I was using Novus. I don't know if that makes any difference.
Right. I'm on civic clerk.
Okay, all righty. Okay, so tonight, basically, this is kind of a formality. We'd just be getting the presentation and going forward. No actions really required. Becca, do you have any comments you want to add since Saturday?
No, just that, well, actually, yes. Per state law, by October 15th, the budget officer must submit the proposed budget to the governing board. So that is our purpose right now, is to comply with the state law. And I just like to mention that on page 14 in the budget, which, by the way, if you look, the 12, 13, and 14 have their page numbers at the top of the page. This was because I changed them out and I wanted to make a little bit of a difference between those and the original pages. On page 14 is what I consider the most important page in the budget, and that is the summary of the general fund. It summarizes the next 26 pages, all of which are the general fund, in one page. Now, in my presentation for fiscal impact on the memo, I had said that the ending 2021 fund balance was forecasted to be $3,452,406. Actually, with the replacement page of the summary of general fund, we have an ending general fund balance that's about a little over 28,000 more than that. So now the forecasted number is $3,480,687, and that is 30.58% of the unassigned expenditures in the general fund.
Right.
And so this meets our state law requirement. That's all I have to say.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, excellent. Since this is kind of a formality, we don't need to do a whole lot, but if any council members have quick comments they'd like to make, this would be a good time for it. Okay, hearing none, I think we will.
I
I'm
have
sorry,
a quick comment.
Okay, yeah, Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. My comment is this is such a good budget book, and it's so important, and there's a lot of information in there that we need to understand thoroughly before we make a decision. So, and obviously, you know, we're not going to have discussions back and forth in a 5-minute agenda item. So is it fair to assume that we're going to have time to actually discuss this? I don't mean make a 3 or 5 minute presentation on our perspective of the entire book. I mean, like, have discussions back and forth. Is that something we're going to be able to do as a group?
Yep, City Council definitely will have input into this budget. You ultimately control the budget. So,
But I mean, I understand that we're supposed to make the decision about the budget, but are we going to be given time to discuss it with each other before we have to vote? And are we going to be given more than 5 minutes per person? This is like the most important issue of the year. I just want to make sure, because I was all excited and all prepared for Saturday, and we had our 8-hour presentation, but we weren't allowed to discuss. And then tonight we're not allowed to discuss. So I just want to make sure that we're going to have time to discuss, because this is my first time around here. I just want to make sure that's going to happen.
Yeah,
we can definitely make that happen.
right, and there are a number of points going forward. I think, I believe it's November the 10th, we have a work session that's, the session is, work session is devoted basically to hearing all the individual boards and commission come in. They come in and talk to council and explain what their budgets are, what they want to do, what their goals are. So it's somewhat analogous to us hearing the department heads last Saturday. So we will hear the boards and commissions. That's one big step. I believe our cutoff date is December the 1st. Is that correct, Becca?
Right, that's the second reading.
Okay, so we've got, and I think we've got several other sessions devoted to budget issues. So this is, we're trying to not eat the elephant all in one bite, basically. So it's distributed over some time. So the answer is yes. Now, the corollary to that is, do you want more time? We could schedule more time. That could be done. And I would anticipate that that would be done as a work session. See, Councilor Wolbert has a comment. You're muted, Susan.
It's the statement of the year, as they say. So I agree. Thank you, Mayor Graham, for talking about that. The other thing that I would recommend is, and Roy may know the dates on this, but there's a couple of community meetings too, right? So for people listening out there who are participating in this meeting and want to share this, and I'm sure it'll be in the Pikes Peak Bulletin, aren't there a couple of meetings for that? I know Denise had to go off and come back on.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
and then
I'm
my
sorry.
last comment would be that you can also schedule one-on-ones with Denise if you feel like you're not going to be able to get your questions answered by the 2 work sessions, the community meetings, and then our final vote on it.
Right. So those are good points. Yeah, Denise, last year she had 2 public meetings at City Hall where she went over the budget with, well, if whoever wanted to attend. And I went to one of those, and it was reasonably well attended, given it was the budget. But it was informative, and there was, it was a good PowerPoint presentation, and the slides were available. I think she had printouts. So that was a good evening of give and take on that. So that can be done. And again, Becca and Denise have offered to do one-on-ones, and I think they could enlist the help of any staff members who would contribute to that. Mr. Cheney, you have your hand up?
Yeah, there's one on October 29th, 5:30 p.m. And then I'm trying to find the other one. There is one more scheduled, I think the week before that. So we'll have 2, I believe, that are set for the citizens.
Roy, can I ask a question? And this is also probably a question for Mayor Graham. Is that over Zoom?
Well, we would anticipate at this point that it probably would be a Zoom meeting. Now, I think the city clerk's office, I was talking to Amber today, and it looks like we may be able to have a hybrid capability by the end of the month. So in that case, we could meet in Memorial Hall. We could have hopefully a public session as well as Zoom session. And I think that would be available for both of the meetings. If I recall correctly, last year Denise had meeting each week for 2 consecutive weeks, but you had them on different nights of the week, so that would better accommodate people's schedules. So that was an effort. Councilor Wolf?
I appreciate that, and that's good to be reminded that we'll have a presentation from the boards and commissions, and that there'll be a presentation to the public. But my particular question here has to do with discussion. I'm not talking about getting questions answered or understanding something, but since we as a body are responsible for making a decision about how this money is going to be spent, I would just assume there's going to be some discussion between us, and I would also assume it'd be a violation of the open meeting laws for us to engage in that discussion if we happen to show up at the community meeting and a few of us want to talk. I thought we can only talk to one person at a time unless we're in this formal setting. So are you suggesting that we can actually have a discussion at these community meetings with other council members off the record?
I was not suggesting that. I was simply saying that it's another way to get more information about people reacting to the budget. I wasn't suggesting that we violate open meeting laws at all.
No, and I wasn't either. And I mean, if you feel the need, we could certainly, I think, schedule, bring this into a work session and try to, take it in iterations, if that would be a good approach. I think the intent, the first thought was to get your questions answered so that we develop a little bit of focus on that. And then if we want to go into a discussion mode, I think we could probably go ahead and do that. I know if anyone on council has a better idea or something, or if anyone's deeply opposed to that, Mr. Parker, make us wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to point out that also you're adopting your budget by ordinance, and a public hearing is required. So there would be a first reading where you usually have the opportunity to discuss anything you want to discuss. And then there'd be a public hearing on second reading where you could also discuss it. That may not be enough, and a work session may be a good forum to just have a little more informal back and forth. But you do ultimately have to have a public hearing that's going to involve any discussion you guys think is appropriate.
No, I mean, that's a good point. Thank you very much. Again, maybe we need to add more time. Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. Yeah, so if we're going to have first reading and then second reading, unless I'm the only person who would like to discuss the budget before we vote on it, I would very much appreciate being able to schedule a work session devoted exclusively to this topic. I would anticipate it'd be reasonable to need even more than one perhaps, but certainly a minimum of one. I would request that if I have the support of other people wanting to do the same.
I think, Councilor Chandler, your comments?
I just want to say that I really appreciate staff putting together an incredible notebook that was at least 3 inches and 112 pages without any of the addendums on Wednesday for our all-day budget retreat on Saturday, of which I learned a lot. I feel like that, in addition to preparing for the next week's city council meeting, was a lot. And I do agree that those of us who have some questions, I've been told that this is the most important thing that we'll do this year. And I just want to support Councilor Wolf in devoting some time at a work session to answer our questions, especially if we didn't get time to get them in the deadline on Wednesday by noon, because we had other things going on, like working for a living. So I think that it would be great for us to devote some time in a work session to answer council's questions that didn't get to be answered on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Duly noted. Well, if it's all right with the rest of council, if there's no objections, we'll look to see about getting some time in a work session and scheduling some further discussion. I think it probably would be good for us to get our individual questions answered first, though. Denise, you have a comment?
Can you hear me? I'm trying to do the phone and, okay.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
I haven't looked at the work session, but October 16th was one of the, for October 13th, we did state we could make that a work session for the budget on that Tuesday. So we can add the budget, I think, to that October 13th. I'll need to look and see what else is on that agenda, but we should be able to add it to that one, or October 27th.
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that next week, October the 13th, we have the library to discuss. I don't think there's any urgency with the library. So I guess given the fact that it seems to me like we better discuss a thorny subject like the budget sooner, and then I guess I'd be willing to postpone the library if we needed to. So I guess the proposal I'm making here is to defer on the library and look at the budget next week. Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Yeah, Mayor, I was just going to suggest that we've tried to establish a precedent where we add things to the agenda that at least 4 people support that. So you might want to just ask how many people support that.
That's a good point. So, okay. So if we were to, I guess my proposal is that we would use next week's work session to discuss to go into the budget. And before I ask for a response, I see Denise raising a hand here.
You know what? I have to respect Becca's time. Becca right now is working on an audit response that is very, very important. And I'm not sure next Tuesday is going to give us the time or her the time to do any changes. Could we move that to the 27th? That still gives us a month of budget time before it has to be approved. And we could even add a special meeting if needed for a work session. But I know right now Becca is 100% dedicated to getting an audit response done.
Well, that's a good point then. Well, now we're gravitating towards October the 27th.
If everybody agrees.
Okay, so who would be in favor of dedicating the October 27th work session to budget discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, let's see. Okay, all opposed? Okay, I think looks 6-1. So, okay, so we'll plan on discussing the budget on October the 27th. Okay, thank you. Denise, yes.
May I just ask if you have questions or clarifications? One is that one-on-one meetings with Becca and I, because that helps, or send us at least the questions so we can be prepared. And if Becca has all the details behind that. So if you can do that, that would help us be successful and make sure that we answer everything that you want answered.
Right. So council members, you've got several alternatives. You can email questions to Denise and Becca and schedule a one-on-one meetings with either or both of them. So that would be good. Any further comment? Okay, Julie, Councilor Wolf.
I just wanted to mention that if any other council members have submitted written questions and if they are requesting written responses rather than a one-on-one meeting, then I would really love an opportunity to read those questions and those responses as well. I think I would learn from it even if I wasn't smart enough to think of the question in the first place. And that's one of the detriments about a one-on-one meeting is we can't learn from each other and share ideas with each other and brainstorm together. And, you know, they usually say as a collective, you come up with a better result than just one idea. So I would love it if other people do get written answers, if we could have it sent to all of council so that we can all benefit. And that way we're not wasting Denise's time to answer the same question 7 times. And not that we're all gonna ask the same thing, but that's just my request.
Okay, that sounds like that's a good point. I see Denise nodding her head. Denise, comment? Just like, is that it?
That would be great. We'll just respond to all of them. We'll put all of them in one document in the response to all of them as we move forward.
Thank you
Great.
so much. That's fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I think we've discussed the budget in its current phase adequately. So let's go on to what I have as G2 under new business, Council Code of Conduct and Standard Operating Procedures. And that was, I think you've all seen the document that was prepared, and Mayor Pro Tem Fortune and Councilman Bremner had worked on that. So at this point, I guess I would ask either Mayor Pro Tem or Councilor Bremner to take the floor.
If I could very quickly, if we could address just the code of conduct and the resolution first, and then address the standard operating procedures after that.
Sounds good.
Because at this point, we were asking for a vote on the resolution and then everyone's signature on the code of conduct, the one pager that we've been looking at for a while, and that based on Wendell's recommendation, we took out 2 of the sentences and included them in the SOP instead.
Okay, great. So the objective then tonight would be to go ahead and move on the code of conduct, the resolution, and then you would provide us with a discussion of the SOPs, which I think that's a work in progress, and the expectation is that that'll have to be continued.
Yes.
Pursuant to discussion and probably maybe some offline work as well. Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to go ahead and talk about the code of conduct?
Well, we've seen it before. In the cover sheet, we state that we took out 2 of the things based on Wendell's recommendation after his meeting with us. I'm not sure that I don't have anything more to discuss other than that. I think both of those, you know, the resolution and the code of conduct are basically one pagers. So, I mean, if someone would like to make a motion, or I'm prepared to make a motion to implement the what do you call it? Adopt the resolution or implement the resolution in the code of conduct.
Okay. Councilor Wolf, see your hand up.
Hi, I would be, this is a point of clarification. So is what Nancy said is she wants us first to vote on just the one-page resolution without the SOP? Is that what we're doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I would vote for it if section 3 is eliminated. I don't like section 3.
We should have a motion if we want to discuss it. We should have a motion in a second. Councilor Shade, I saw you had your hand up, I think. did I imagine?
Yes, I'm looking in the packet that was posted to the public, and is the Code of Conduct Exhibit A?
Okay, so there's 3 documents. There's a code of conduct and a resolution for the code of conduct. I believe if you go to the code of conduct, that will include a page that enumerates the principles, followed by a signature page on the back. And if you go to the resolution, we just have that first page on there. So that's a
But
little
Jeff,
confusing.
I
question,
don't have that either.
Yeah.
the code of conduct.
I see a blank Exhibit A with the big words draft on it.
So I'm looking at that as well. What you're looking at is the civic clerk version of it, and it was posted. I believe what happened is we replaced the standard operating procedures with a version that had numbers by each line. And I'm not sure what happened to it was up there until today. So what I can do,
Come on.
Yeah, it was there this morning, so.
yeah, I can bring up the document and do a share screen.
Is that legal, Jeff, for us to go forward and vote on something that's not in the packet?
Yeah, so the agenda item is basically notice you had the wrong exhibit to the code of conduct. So technically you could still approve it because the agenda is accurate, but it's up to city council if you all decide you want to continue it. So the right documents in the packet, or you could approve it with the replaced document after you review it to make sure we're all looking at the right document here.
Recommendation about what would be more prudent, or is each way doesn't matter?
I think legally each way you're legal. The key is that your agenda actually lists the appropriate consideration. So it is a little confusing. I was confused too. I was going to raise the same question. So.
Well, I guess at this point, my point is, given that I pulled the document up fresh again, I don't have a copy of the old one.
Okay, so I have put it up on the screen under the shared screen. It's the one, this is the same one that was under civic clerk. I pulled it up off of Novus because right now we're running those parallel.
And I apologize, it was in Novus this morning, so
And it
between
was on-
this morning and tonight it disappeared.
I have a question.
Just a minute, Councilor Wolf. I think Denise had her hand up first. Denise, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say it was there at 5 o'clock because I printed it off. So I don't know what happened. That's all I was going to say. It was there at 5.
I know it was there earlier today also. Okay, Councilor Wolf?
Oh, thank you. My question is a little embarrassing, but I don't know on my computer how I cannot make this screen any larger. And the font is like a 3-point font or something. I have difficulty reading. Oh, that helps. Oh, can you do it a little again? Whatever. Oh, thank you. Oh.
Sure, and then I can scroll it as you're looking at it as well when you want to see the bottom half.
Okay, yeah, because I couldn't see it.
It-
Well, I'd
okay.
like to move that we postpone this and talk about it when the public can see everything and we can talk about it. But if there's, I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I'd like to move to talk about this when I have the document in front of me, but other than on half of a screen or half of it on the screen. But I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Otherwise, we'll just do our best.
I guess I'd like to quickly kind of get a temperature reading from council. We can either postpone, and I think this is due mainly to technical glitches, postpone and discuss it another evening, or I guess we could push forward. I don't know that we're in any tremendous urgency to do this. So I guess real quick, okay, Councilor Wolf, you want to postpone. Councilor Shada, was your intent to postpone?
No, I just wanted to make sure that people in the public saw what we were talking about. And I don't tend to kind of print these things off or necessarily kind of save extra copies. And so if everybody else can see what Julie's seen, and I think we've seen this before. So I'm comfortable passing this code of conduct.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor Shada. Counselor Chandler, what's your pleasure?
So I am now currently confused. Having gone through the budget weekend of Wednesday through Saturday, I didn't get to my packet until Sunday and read that Exhibit A was 16 pages. And it does say in resolution number 3020, section 1, the City of Manitou Springs Code of Conduct is hereby adopted as it is presented in Exhibit A, to which I have a number of questions and concerns. So I would move, if Exhibit A is in fact part of this, and I'm now confused, please give me clarification if you can, that we discuss this further, because I do believe this is a very important thing that we get right. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk, do we include the portion below the Code of Conduct? Is that Exhibit A, or is the Code of Conduct, and theoretically the signature page constitute Exhibit A, I think, under the portion
Yes.
that's called the
So
resolution?
Exhibit A is this document I have on share screen, which is the City Council Code of Conduct. I made it larger so that you could read it. And then as I scroll down, it does, page 2 includes a place where each council member can sign.
Okay.
That is Exhibit A.
Okay.
The large document that was 16 pages is the standard operating procedures.
Yeah. So, Counselor Chandler, does that provide is that helpful?
It is helpful. I do believe, my opinion is that since we will be asked to sign this, and I have never been asked to sign something before, I do think that we need some additional discussion on it. And again, I'm not trying to kick the can down the road. I just want to make sure that what we are signing and the chain of command and so forth is something that we can all feel comfortable and agree on as a council, and with staff and with our citizens of Manitou.
Okay. All right, thank you. Counselor Shady, you got your hand up? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So Judy was scrolling. I just want to make sure that in this code of conduct that it doesn't reference the standard operating procedures.
I believe it doesn't.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure, because if it seems like to me the standard operating procedures that were submitted in the packet have, I mean, the author who put them in there said, things need to be filled in, stuff that needs to be worked on. And I just wanted to make sure, because I do remember this document and I'm comfortable with it, but if there are other members of council that want to discuss it further or whatever, that's fine with me too. I just wanted to make sure that if we pass this code of conduct, that we weren't sort of somehow sucking in all these standard operating procedure stuff that we haven't discussed yet.
Okay. No, that's, yeah, I think you see that correctly. Yeah, the standard operating procedures, we're just looking at first draft tonight, and there are some places, in fact, they're identified in the document where additional work is required. So the intent was after we do whatever we do with the resolution, we would go on to the standard operating procedure and provide Councilman Bremner and Mayor Pro Tem Fortune an opportunity to kind of walk us through that so that we can become a little bit up to speed with that. And then probably there'd be one or more sessions to flesh that out. Okay. Councilor Wilbrook, what are your thoughts?
I would like to see us move forward with this agenda item tonight, and take a look at the code of conduct and take perhaps a vote on that resolution, if that is what the appropriate action is. I also would like to discuss the standard operating procedures for this tonight. This is a relatively light agenda tonight. We've got a lot coming up for the remainder of the year between budget and a whole bunch of other issues that are coming back before us, like Hiawatha Gardens and the library. And the idea of just delaying this and not looking at this one page of conduct tonight, and at least talking about it, I think would not be a best use of time to postpone. I'm for doing it tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. Counselor Bremner, your thoughts?
I'm prepared to vote on it tonight.
Okay, good, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'm obviously prepared to vote on it tonight.
And for my 2 cents, I'm prepared to vote on it tonight also. So we have 5 in favor of moving forward. The document that we're looking at, that single page, is something we've seen multiple times. I think there were 2 items that were removed at the suggestion of Wendell Pryor. So if anything, we've seen this before, minus a couple of points. And those items were identified in the council packet, which we've all, I think we've all had access to. So I think we should go forward with this then.
Can I ask for a point of clarification, Mayor?
Sure.
On what we are
Counselor
voting for? So it's my understanding that we are voting for the City Council Code of Conduct without the SOP tonight.
Correct. Right. Yeah, the SOPs are a separate item.
Thank you.
Is that clear for everyone? Okay. So what the city clerk has displayed right now, essentially that's what we would be adopting down. And I think the bottom several lines, I can't see them on my screen. I think that's probably the same for the rest of you. City clerk, Judy, if you could move that up just a little bit so you can see the bottom portion of it, the adoption. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Okay. In that case, do we have a motion to act on this? Motion to accept the resolution? Okay.
So moved.
We accept it.
Okay,
Second.
So we have a motion in 2 seconds. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem and seconds by Councilman
I
Bremner and
can't hear
Councilwoman.
you, John.
Okay, sorry. So we have a motion and a second, so we can go ahead and act on this. Any further discussion on this? Okay,
I have
hearing
further
none.
discussion.
Okay, Julie, Councilor Wolf.
Thank you. The sentence that troubles me is under the enforcement section. It's the second bullet point. If self-regulation is not effective, the council as a body may seek public action to address violations. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like that part. I believe that we're primarily accountable to our constituents, to the residents, and I find it objectionable that a mere 4 members of a council body can, yield the power to seek public action to accuse another member of a violation without it being spelled out more. I don't believe there should be any public action to address violations, because I believe our code is already pretty effective at handling that, because there's already a provision for recall. And so that's up to the citizens. It's not up to each other. And I just feel that we're already having some difficulty even figuring out how to obey the code and the charter as it now exists. For example, it says that we can't direct staff, which we all know. And so, like, for example, and I'd like to read this into the record, I sent an email to City Administrator Denise Howell this morning at 9:20 a.m. with questions about the budget. And it ends by explaining that, if you can get this information by tonight, that would be fabulous. And if not, I totally understand. I said, I just didn't want to waste the council's precious time squeezing in this issue into the 5 minutes that were given to us to discuss the budget tonight. And she wrote back a very nice thing saying, oh, I don't have time to answer that tonight, but no worries, because we don't have to vote on anything. But then I got this email from the mayor today in response, and it says, apparently you weren't, this wasn't important enough for you to ask the questions during the 48-hour deadline that you were given to ask your questions. And not only that, it ends with, remember also that it is not only inappropriate for a counselor to direct staff, it is prohibited by the city code. And so the implication in this email is that, hey, Julie, you just violated the city code because you asked questions of our city administrator, who's the only person we're allowed to ask questions of. So she was certainly the right person to send the questions to. But the part of my email that says, if it's possible to answer this before tonight, that would be fabulous. And if not, I totally understand and thank you for all the work you do. And now gee, you know, it sounds like under enforcement, the council as a body should seek public action to address this violation. I would like to focus primarily on how do we not violate that. I'd love to see a form letter so I can just fill in the blanks, you know, dear blank, here are my questions, or whatever guidance I can have. But I saw absolutely nothing in my email to city administrator that was directing staff. To me, directing means, you know, like you have to do this, giving instructions. But apparently there's a fine line between directing staff and asking for help with questions to be answered. So I'm not at all comfortable with agreeing to this with that very last bullet point on there, because I'm not in favor of this body seeking public action to address any perceived violations. So if that one bullet point were removed, I'd be comfortable with it. Otherwise, that's my position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Pro Tem?
thank you. Since I made the motion, I would be more than willing to amend my motion to approve the resolution after eliminating section 3 of it, since that is already covered in city ordinance, to allow that to happen.
Okay, I'm sorry, and you said section 3?
Yeah, if
There are no
self-regulation,
numbers on this.
the council as a body may seek public action to address violations.
That's section 3 on your paper? It's not
Yes.
section 3 on the screen. So I don't know what you're looking
I'm
at.
looking at the resolution.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry, we've got the code of conduct itself displayed, so.
I don't understand what she's talking about. Can you try that again, Nancy? I want to follow your reasoning.
Yes, it's my understanding that you are quoting section 3 of the resolution that will implement the code of conduct, which is A of the resolution.
It actually comes in 2 places. You're absolutely right. It's in section 3 of the resolution, but it's also in, I guess, what we're supposed to assume is the new exhibit A, which is on the screen. Under enforcement, under the second bullet point, right above the word adoption.
Okay,
So
I
it shows up in
apologize if you see that. Again, since both of those, since that, we do have that authority under city ordinance to do that. I will be willing to take that, both of the section 3 and the second bullet under enforcement out in order to move this forward.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Then I'm comfortable with this and I have no other questions. Thank you.
Councilor Wilbrook?
Yeah, in listening to that, I guess my question would be, does that need to reference that city ordinance, or does it need to say as per the city charter? I mean, because this is very vague, may seek public action to address violations. You guys are being very specific and saying that there's an ordinance that handles this. So, I mean, I guess if you're taking it all the way out, I'm not into that. I think if there's something in the charter or an ordinance, we need to reference it here. And that needs to be in our code of conduct, but I don't like the idea of having nothing there.
Oh, Nancy, would you be able to help us with whatever that ordinance says that you were just referring to?
Yeah, it's referenced in the SOP.
Which page? There are 16 pages of the SOP.
I don't have that.
It's section 2.08.190 of the city code. which deals with the censure process if a council member is alleged to have violated a rule.
So is it in the Exhibit A that is posted on, is it, Nancy seemed to suggest it's somewhere in the 16 pages. Is it, I don't see it. Or can you read that section to us, Jeff? Or, I don't know what we're talking about because I'm not familiar with that code.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm referencing something different than Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
No, that's exactly what I referenced, Jeff.
Okay, I can read you what the code says if you'd like me to read it.
Oh, thank you.
So it's section 2.08.190 of the code. It's entitled censure. And it's got a subsection A and B. And subsection A says, in the event that a member of council wishes to make an allegation that another council member has violated any of the rules set forth herein, he or she shall, after being recognized by the mayor, make a motion setting forth the details of the alleged violations and asking that the matter be set for a hearing. The motion requires a second, is not debatable, and requires a 2/3 vote of all members of council to be set for a hearing. If the motion is adopted, the date and the time of the hearing shall be set by the mayor not less than 30 days nor more than 60 days following the adoption of the motion. So subsection A basically sets forth the process for an allegation being set for a hearing if 2/3 of the city council agree that it should be set for a hearing. And then subsection B addresses the hearing itself. And what it says is, at the hearing, the council member who made the motion shall present to council such information as he or she thinks pertinent to the issue. Thereafter, other members of council may ask questions and offer comments. At the conclusion of council's comments and questions, the council member whose conduct is in question may present to council such information as he or she thinks pertinent to the issue. Thereafter, other members of council may ask questions and offer comments. At the conclusion of all discussion, council shall then vote on the question of whether or not to censure. A decision to censure requires a 2/3 vote of all members of council. So that's sort of a public process to tell a council member they violated one of the rules of the city council.
Oh, that was,
Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. That was going to be my next question. So the first part you said, any rules set forth herein. I didn't know what rules are set forth therein. Which rules are they referring to, I guess, is the better way to say
Yeah,
it.
that's a good question. So, this is in chapter 2.08 of the code, which deals with, a lot of things. 2.08.17180 deals with conduct of council members and quasi-judicial actions and dealing with confidential information. So it probably references that primarily. It doesn't actually say what it is. This is adopted back in 1990 or 2006, I guess. So it's a little old before my time. But if the city council wanted to incorporate these rules of conduct, you could always reference that they're subject to that censure process if that's what you wanted to do, to clarify that in the rules of conduct. Otherwise, it's not 100% clear what rules they're talking about, but it's probably those that are actually in the code right now.
Okay, so if I understood that correctly, then the bottom line is that taking out the provisions I wanted to remove does not automatically invoke the ordinance you just read, because most likely that ordinance pertains to that chapter, since it says the rules set forth herein. It doesn't say any and all rules and resolutions that the city might choose to pass at any time. It says herein. So I agree with you that I don't think Nancy's assumption is quite correct, that that other provision would cover this code of conduct.
Yeah, right now your code doesn't have any sort of substantive relief for addressing city council members' misconduct other than the public process, which could be anything, frankly. I mean, there's no reason why it needs to actually follow the formal process. Somebody could just raise an issue in a meeting and complain. And there could be
Right.
discussion like that too. So,
Right, but then you don't have the second section that talks about sanctions, public violation action, but all that stuff. So it sounds like, if I understand correctly, then that the code you just read does not apply to conduct described in our new Exhibit A. It only refers to conduct described in that chapter of that code. Then, yeah, I would say I'm happy to take those provisions out, although I don't know if Nancy wants to remove the friendly amendment now that you've explained that. But I do not believe it's appropriate to add the code of conduct to the list of potential sanctions that council members can bring against each other.
Well, the provision to allow censure is there whether we pass this code of conduct or not. It's been there for a long time. So that part's going to stand regardless of what we do tonight. Getting back to the business at hand, Mayor Pro Tem had made the original motion, and she indicated she was willing to amend it. We had a second on that. So I guess I'll go back to Mayor Pro Tem. Is your intent still to remove that self-regulation clause?
I will support removing it because I think that council can do it if we have a majority who wants to do it. So it's unfortunate because I think that I think that we do need to hold ourselves more accountable than we potentially have, but that does take a majority or a 2/3 majority, whatever, and I'm fine with that. So to me, that option always exists for us, whether it's in this code of conduct or not.
Thank you. I believe the second was made by Councilor Bremner to the original motion. Mr. Bremner, would you accept the amended version that Nancy just talked about?
Yes, I do.
You would. Okay, so now the motion on the floor is to accept the code of conduct minus, I guess it'd be the second bullet under enforcement, where it states, if self-regulation is not effective, the council as a body may seek public action to address violations. And then there's a corresponding portion in the resolution identified as section 3, I believe, and that would also be removed. Is that am I correct in understanding that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so that would be, we have the motion in a second now. Okay, do we have further discussion? Councilor Wilbrook?
So can I ask a question about this? I think what I'm hearing is we'll remove the self-regulation. Seems like there's favorable movement on taking out, if self-regulation is not effective, the council as a body may seek public action to address violations. We take that out. We've also discussed that with what we have in our book, censure doesn't apply to council conduct, correct? Am I correct in that? That's what we've discovered tonight?
It doesn't appear to directly apply to the code of conduct. It more likely applies to what's written in your code for council, following council procedures. There will be some overlap in what your code of conduct covers and what the code covers, but right now the censure provisions really apply to the code, what's in the code.
So define public action, may seek public action to address violations, because that's what we're talking about taking out. So give me some examples of public action.
Well, okay, so first of all, I didn't draft this. So to me, public action just means using city council's authority to discuss and address issues. You don't have the authority to remove a council member.
Right.
You don't have any authority to, prevent them from engaging in their duties as long as they're, not misrepresenting their roles. So ultimately, it's just what you would do in a public meeting to address an issue of concern.
So then we would leave the first item that basically says, if I feel that somebody has violated the code of conduct, what I have in this code of conduct is I can have a conversation with them, a private conversation with them. And that is the enforcement part of this code of conduct. is council members should seek private conversations with any member observed in violation as a first course of action. Because I think the SOPs go against that, don't they? It's not private in the SOP. There are things in there that allow you to react if you feel that someone is violating the code of conduct. Nancy and Steve, could you comment on that?
And Susan, as I understand this, as I interpret this, that just taking that out doesn't mean that we can't seek public action as a council. It's just, you know, we could put any number of things in this, and it's primarily self-regulation. By taking it out, if it makes some council members more comfortable, that's fine, it's not in there, but I see it always as a council option to take public action if the majority of the council thinks it's appropriate. And as our attorney said, it's just a matter of bringing it up in a council meeting and then discussing and coming to a conclusion.
Mr. Bremner, do you have comments on that?
No, I just, I take what Mayor Pro Tem Fortune says and agree with it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor,
Councilor,
Councilor Chandler has had her hand up.
okay, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Judith, I couldn't see you there. Councilor
Okay,
Chandler?
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, since what is in our packet and what is now presented on the screen are different. Resolution 3020, Section 1 says presented in Exhibit A. My Exhibit A in my packet is a draft of the SOP. My Exhibit A now on the screen is the original code of conduct. So I want to make sure what I am voting on is the code of conduct on the screen and not Exhibit A as the SOP draft in our packet.
That is correct.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the,
Question,
I'm sorry, who was that?
Julie?
Julie, okay.
I think Judith has a good point, and I think if we're going to vote on this to make it clean, we should also agree to modify the section of the resolution that refers to this as Exhibit A and simply refer to it by the title. And that way, I think we're reducing the possibility for confusion in the future. It doesn't seem that controversial, but I'm looking here, and Section 1 of the resolution specifically refers to Exhibit A. If we take out Exhibit A, they take out those words, and we instead say Code of Conduct, blah, 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 whatever this thing is called, I can't see because the top is cut off. Then I think our resolution matches what we're doing. I would imagine that's a cleaner, better way to do it, because who wants to pass a resolution that refers to Exhibit A and there's no damn Exhibit A? That's just super sloppy. I can see someone in the future trying to figure out what we were trying to do, and if they don't go back and listen to this whole meeting, they're going to be like, what in the world? So as a friendly amendment, would Nancy, would you consider removing the words Exhibit A from Section 1 and replace it with City of Manitou Springs City Council Code of Conduct as is reflected on the screen, since it's not in the packet anywhere?
Yes,
And at least,
that is a friendly amendment.
okay.
Since in the future, what is on, using the verbiage, what is on the screen is going to be confusing, perhaps we could say is presented as attached here too, and then attach a copy to the resolution. Would that be clearer?
Well, as long as we know what it's being attached here to when we raise our hand, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be the thought.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I just don't want it to be confusing.
When there's a final copy that the clerk keeps of the resolution that's executed, Exhibit A will be attached as the code of conduct. So there will be an official final copy with whatever you attach, however you want to reference it, just for the city records.
Oh, Oh, so then it should still say Exhibit A. Maybe it can just keep Exhibit A, comma, and just add, which is the City of Manitou Springs City Council Code of Conduct that was presented during the meeting on the screen.
And
That way
the title of the resolution says that.
Yeah, but Section 1 doesn't. Section 1 refers to Exhibit A, which is the document that has the word draft all over it. That's the problem. Okay.
I agree.
Exhibit A is the code of conduct, is it not? It includes the signature page. Am I correct on that, or?
Yes, and I would just say to make Julie and Judith more comfortable, I will do a friendly amendment to change Exhibit A in Section 1 of the resolution to Code of Conduct for the City Council of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado.
Very good. Excellent.
Okay, Councilor Chan,
Mayor?
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have two questions. One, are you entertaining discussion from the public on this? And does Judy Morgan have anybody who has their hand raised? And when would be the appropriate time to do that?
Generally, well, often we don't do it, but if we do have public input, well, let's clarify the motion where we're at, and then if we've got public comment, we'll ask for that. Okay, so if I understand it correctly, Mayor Pro Tem's proposal is to, there's several parts. There's taking the portion about self-regulation and deleting that, taking out Section 3. It said that is, and then on the resolution itself, removing Section 3, self-regulation, and of course take out the corresponding part under the Code of Conduct itself. And then in Section 1, instead of referring to it as Exhibit A, we would just refer to it as the Code of Conduct. Is that a fair restatement of your motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Okay. And
Mayor, we do have one hand that is up.
okay. Oh, okay. That person has 3 minutes.
Okay. So this is Bob Todd. And so Mr. Todd, you are, if you'd like to state your name and your resident address for the record, please.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Bob Todd, 20 Manitou Terrace. Thank you. Good evening. Number one, I really commend council for Saturday's budget work session. Number two, I really commend council for being on top of this code of conduct and wanting to get it in place. From my experience on council for 4 years through 2 administrations, without having a code of conduct, we were constantly left in the position where we would have to ask the city attorney for his opinion on things of the ilk that are in the code of conduct. And at that point, the city attorney would have to say, well, this is a political decision. There's not really anything legal around it. So it's important we get this code in place. My first observation is that putting in place a code of conduct without any teeth in it is not of any great value, particularly given where the city has migrated relative to these types of issues. So teeth are important, in my opinion. My next opinion is that because this is a resolution, it's not an ordinance, it's not become part of the city code. I truly believe it needs to be part of the city code. And then what you discussed earlier about censure, for example, would be one of the tools in the toolkit, so to speak. Without that, you really have nothing. And if an issue comes up, you'll have this debate over and over again over specific issues. If it's in the code, it's very crisp. So those would be my 2 very high level points. And then my 2 minor points are that you stressed throughout the introduction phase of this, it was really important to have public comment. And here we are. I know this topic is very dear to people in the public, And here we are, council doesn't even know more or less what's on the agenda. How could the public possibly know that? And here you've been stressing having public input. So I think my public input should have you consider this a lot more deeply across the points I stated. And Nancy and Steve do have from me a red line that I asked them that they might put into their mix this evening. I leave that for them to bring up, but certainly I would bring that up if there was public comment, that I would have it in writing on one sheet of paper.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Okay. Say back to the motion at hand then. Do we have further discussion? Yes. For me personally, I would prefer to leave it as originally drafted. I would leave in the self-regulation clause. I realize it is vague. I do think we have recourse to the section that Mr. Parker referred to, the censure. We have it on all grounds at all times. We've had that for a long time. That would be my thought, to leave it as is. Any further discussion then? Okay. I think we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Bremner? Comments?
Oh, you said we're going to go ahead and vote. I was going to say that I would make a motion to leave it as is and go ahead and vote on it and see if it flies. That's all. If anybody wants to second the motion.
Your intent is to leave it as originally drafted.
Correct.
We've already got a motion on the table though, so.
We do have the motion on the floor, so we will have to act on it when the motion's on the floor. Okay. All in favor of, I'm sorry, Councilor Wilbrook, you had a.
Yeah, can I ask one more question? It's technically possible, right, that we would draft this code of conduct tonight that, you know, I agree, it doesn't seem to have much teeth to it. And then we could just never get around to agreeing on the SOP. So what does that do for the city? I'm just thinking that if that's a real possibility, that's not going to be well received by the public. I mean, it seems like we're writing a code of conduct that has no teeth for ourselves, and then we're leaving it to later to do the SOPs. And if we vote those down and decide not to do them, that's all possible, right? That's all possible in the realm of the crystal ball of many possibilities for the future. Am I wrong about that? I mean, we're not under any obligation
Mayor Pro Tem,
to do that SOP.
I would
Right?
submit, sorry. I would submit that the SOP is a living document. And it's just to get general and an educational tool. And I mean, we're going to discuss that after this. But we can discuss that as well. How formally we'd like to put it in place or not put it in place. I don't see it as serious an issue.
Okay.
Mr. Bremner.
Well, I just like to say that I think that the code of conduct is just that. It's a code of conduct. It's a recommendation. And I think it does have teeth as it stands, as long as we leave it as it is. And, you know, it's a way to behave, and it's a way to, it's a reference. So people can say, okay, how do we behave as a body, as a city council?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bremner. Councilor Chandler?
I'd like to call the question on the motion as amended that we vote.
All in favor for the motion as amended, say aye. Raise your hand. We have 4, okay, or 5, okay. All opposed? It's just, yeah, okay, 2. So motion passes 5-2 as amended. Very good. Okay, thank you. Now if we could get on to the SOP portion. Mr. Bremner, I believe you were gonna lead that off.
Sure. And again, you know, this is a living document. It's a first draft. And I think the important part of it is it embodies our core values. And those core values, as we've addressed them in the document, are assume the best of each other, model behavior for our community to emulate, and the consistent theme throughout is the conduct guidelines is respect. Now, my background is in the military. I was in the Air Force for 24 years. And I went back and I looked at our Air Force core values because they're very simple and they're easy to remember. And our Air Force core values were integrity first, service before self. And that doesn't mean that you're just going to, sacrifice your family and everything else. It just means that your professional duties take precedence over personal desires. And if we look at what we do as a city council, we don't always act in a manner that would be what we personally want. We have to look at what the community wants. And then the third core value for the Air Force is excellence in all we do. So if, think about those core values as we go through the document. Now, the document's broken up into different sections, but you can see throughout that it's tied with the code of conduct. You go through the sections and there's a section that says conduct with one another. There's another section right after that says conduct with city staff. And then the next section after that is conduct with public agencies, conduct with the public, and conduct with the media. And when Nancy and I were putting this document together, we were hoping that we could make it so that people would read it and incorporate into their life, their conduct on the city council and their conduct with members of the outside, whether it's the media, the public, or city staff. So I would just recommend, I hope people have a chance to read it and go through it and comment on it. And we can continue to refine it and bring it up to what we want to have it. Now, when Nancy and I put this together, we plagiarized from other city councils' SOPs, and then we modified it, to make it so it would be a living document for Manitou Springs. So we worked with SOPs from Fountain, Parker, and other towns that we found. So those are my comments with regard to it.
Graham, would you like to add to those comments that you were one of the authors? And then we'll entertain questions.
Again, I wouldn't exactly say author, but we did just work together to kind of come up with something that we thought was tailored to Manitou Springs. There's a lot there, and I think that it's standard. The intent is to standardize our behaviors as a team. And I would say that, working as a team is the ideal. I think any team has rules that they abide by, and this could be seen as the set of rules that we would abide by. And it's basically so that I know, again, Councilor Roebuck and I had the privilege of going to training when we first started, and it was very helpful to hear what all the other cities do. And this kind of talks in that vein as well. It's just kind of, here's the best practices that a whole lot of cities undertake. And I don't know that all the new council members had enough. I know John Shada has been on council before, so he does, but perhaps it would be useful for the other council members. Just read this as an educational document and that we could kind of all commit to it whatever level. I'm not looking for total commitment here, but I think it just lays a good standard down for us. And we were just looking for general support from the rest of the council to move forward with this. So we were looking that as people look at this with perhaps new set of eyes or fresh set of eyes after tonight, they would send whatever comments they might have to Judy. Judy could provide them to Steve and myself, and we could continue to edit, amend, and include all of your proposed changes for the next time we take a look at this.
Good. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So following what the plan that she proposed, I think the intent here, and certainly we're not going to finish this off tonight. This is going to be an iterative approach. We have the first draft, which I think is pretty good. Obviously, there are several areas where it needs to be fleshed out. We could probably discuss this a little bit tonight. I think this is one of those things you want to mull over. So there's the opportunity to forward, as Mayor Pro Tem Fortune said, to email our comments to our questions, concerns, et cetera, to the city clerk, so that she can incorporate those and kind of be the point of contact. And part of that, of course, is to circumvent any violation of the open meetings law. My thought was if we gave ourselves 2 weeks, and tried to get those comments in by October 20th, then Nancy and Steve could go back and come up with a revised edition that we could reconsider at a work session on November 10th. And we could, if we wanted to take formal action, if we felt we were ready, we could schedule that for November the 17th. And that assumes we're going to get some of our other work done as well. But that would be sort of a tentative schedule. So if I could just kind of quickly go around the table and see what your thoughts are. Let's see, Councilor Wilbrook.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm fine to look at this, and I've looked at it some already and have some thoughts that I'd be happy to send over. And I think a 2-week window is a good time for us to do that on the individual level. And obviously tonight, if some people have some things that they don't understand when reading this, or pretty have strong feelings about it, it'd be good to talk about that tonight in the things that you need more clarification about.
That said, does Councilor Wilbrook, does anything come to mind for you as far as stuff that points that you'd like to consider tonight or discuss?
I think that Steve and Nancy have done a great job at getting us started on this, and I greatly appreciate their efforts on this. I haven't seen anything in here that I have a strong objection to at this point, but I'd like some more time with it.
Okay, understand. Good point. Councilor Wolf, your thoughts?
I'd like more time for it too. I wonder, and I don't know if this is allowed or not, but Jeff can tell me. It would help me to find out what other people's concerns are. Are we allowed to copy all council members when we send in our comments or questions or concerns about this document, or would that be a violation?
Well, you can copy them all. The concern is that if there's responses that are going back and forth, it becomes a conversation, a discussion that could violate the open meetings law.
If I sent to all council my 6 bullet points, and then it doesn't sound like anybody will be answering them anyway. It's just an opportunity to raise the issues before the meeting, I guess. Is that what we're contemplating? I don't know that it's not like questions and answers. Maybe I need clarification. So if we send in our comments, who do we send them to? And is the person we're sending them to intending to reply, or what? Or is it just to create an agenda, for next meeting?
Yeah. Our intent, sorry.
Well, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Our intent was to gather all of the comments, incorporate them in track changes so that you would see them, or just having comments consolidated. But that all council members, as we bring this back to council, all council members would see all the input that was provided, because it would all go to Judy. And we might rewrite some stuff that, again, we would put in as track changes, so nothing would be lost or nothing would be changed without visibility of it. Does that help?
Yeah, I guess it helps to the extent where, even though I'd only have, if we get this on a Friday and then we have to be all prepared by Tuesday, is a little more difficult than if we get the answers, a few weeks in advance or something. But yeah, I guess that's fine. I guess we don't have to see each other's comments or questions until we get the consolidated document that Nancy's referring to. So that's fine with me.
Okay,
Thank
you'd be
you.
Be okay with that. All right, and
John, are you talking?
no, I'm sorry, I was hesitating. I started to. I guess I'm trying to see who needed to speak next. And Councilor Chandler, you've got your hand raised, and so Councilor Chandler, you've got the floor.
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Fortune and Councilor Bremner for all of your hard work on this. I really appreciate it. I think what I would have appreciated when I received my packet after a very long budget weekend, I looked at my packet and it said Exhibit A was the SOP. And the SOP looks like it's at 10 or 11 font, lines 12 through 654. And I read all of that in preparation for the council meeting, thinking that Exhibit A was part of what we were voting on tonight. And I had numerous questions, so many so that I was worried that I was gonna have to vote to pull it off the agenda, because this is a really big deal. It's really important. And so I just feel like in the 11th hour, finding out that Exhibit A was actually the code of conduct and not this, I would have liked to have had some clarification from that. We do have lives, we have work, and we have family. And when we're spending hours and hours and weekends on council, I spent hours making notes on this. So I appreciate now knowing where we are, and that's a good thing, and voting on the original code of conduct, that I think we can go forward with this SOP. I have a few concerns. One being that I just want to throw out, and this is just me personally, but I want us to be very careful going forward with any government documents that we remain gender neutral. This is a document that I read. It's 16 pages, and there's a lot of he and his. And as a woman, I think that I could make a case for saying, well, that document didn't apply to me because it didn't say she or her. So I would like to see that represented in Manitou Springs all as a whole, but certainly starting with this document would be really refreshing. And I have some other concerns, but it sounds like we have a protocol, and I'll defer to my other council members. I have some concerns and questions, but I think it's a great start, and I really think it's awesome. Thanks so much.
Well, Councilor Chandler, if you have some serious concerns, if you could state them briefly, I think this would be a good time so we could be thinking those things over.
Okay, two things come up. First of all, I'm very concerned about the 3 to 5 minute limit on sharing as a total of the time that I get to present. There are times when our packets are in excess of hundreds of pages, and I realize I don't have to read every contract, but there are times when I've read some contracts and I've found some mistakes. So if I'm going to read a 100-some page packet, I do not want to be limited to 3 to 5 minutes total. I don't mind being limited to 3 to 5 minutes as my turn, but sometimes my 3 to 5 minutes is just points of clarification before I even pose a question. So if we are going to work very hard as a council, we need to be given an opportunity and a platform to voice our opinions. Second of all, I do not believe that we need to be mandated to have a once a month meeting with the city administrator. I think it's a wonderful idea if we need to have a meeting with the city administrator that we reach out to her and do so, but I don't believe that that should be mandated in addition to the other multiple tasks that and multiple hats that we wear as council and all of the volunteer work that we do. So those were two of my major concerns. I have some other things that I can put out there, but those were two that really stuck out to me. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's good input, and I appreciate it. Mr. Shady, your thoughts?
Sorry about that. I had to find my unmute button. Let's see. My biggest concern down here were this entire kind of section on sanctions. To me, this whole section, the way it's sort of kind of written, actually almost appears rather fascist to me. Our form of government in our country is just that people are, I believe, should be allowed to have due process. And to me, this whole section here seems very incestuous. It seems like the council's making rules is the section on actually accusing somebody of something, then being the judge, and essentially practically almost, determining the punishment. And I really object to that.
Okay, and in looking at the document, I note that after that sanctions, there's the parenthetical note that this section will require additional discussion with council. So I guess my interpretation is that that's not set in concrete, but certainly your comments, I think probably your written comments would welcome, and maybe you could suggest alternatives. Okay, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Bremner, I think my sense from your previous comments is that you'd be ready to go back and work on this some more after getting comments back from council. Is that correct?
Absolutely, it's a work in progress, and there's all kinds of places in there where we ask for input. So yes.
Okay, good. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, great, thank you. And
I would say the one thing I would, I thought about putting in there that I haven't yet, but I probably will still do it, is timekeeping. And that we need to balance out with what Councilor Chandler just brought up about 3 to 5 minutes. But I do think that timekeeping is critical, is important, and there's ways that can be done which hopefully would not be too offensive.
That's a good point. And I think back to several weeks ago, or maybe even longer, there was a question about putting time limits on meetings. I know in the previous council, Jay Rohr had brought that idea forward towards the end of the term there, but I don't think they'd even got on the table to be discussed. Anyway, so, okay. I think we've gone around the table. Julie, you've got a last question there, or comment?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize you wanted to wrap it up. Well, I was just thinking that, and I know I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but to me, having, whether I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to present my point of view, I appreciate that we need time to present our point of view. And I appreciate that the mayor is always very good about making sure that each and every one of us has that opportunity to do so. But to me, especially when we're involved in something tricky or complicated or difficult, the word discussion comes to mind. I'm not sure what other word to use, but it's the concept of you say something about your opinion and I have a chance to ask you, okay, there are a few things you said, I need clarification. This one thing, did you mean this or that? And then you explain better. And then I say, oh, okay, well, what about this? I mean, to me, discussion involves some back and forth. You can't brainstorm if you're given 5 minutes or even 20 minutes to present your case. That's more of a closing argument. I want us to have an opportunity to discuss things other than on a one-on-one basis in between all of our meetings and work sessions. And I'm not sure how or where that concept might find its place in this document, but since the document talks about all other kinds of things, travel reimbursement and all these, things that don't have a lot to do with conduct, I just thought, well, gee, I'd love it to be in here that the mayor is always required to not only allow someone to say their point of view, but to also allow some opportunity for exchange of ideas back and forth, what I would call discussion. That's just something I'll try to play with and see if there's a way to insert it in here. But that was one thing that was missing in here that's always been kind of an issue that I'd love to get, improved.
All right, thank you for your comments there. Good. Councilor Wilbrook?
Just a quick follow on to what was discussed in the last city council before this council was seated, was the idea that instead of trying to limit people's ability, the limited time that people can talk, you limit the time of the meeting, okay? And so what happens with that, and it's something that we could talk about, and I think the reason the last council, while they discussed it, didn't make a decision on it, is that 4 people were leaving and they didn't feel like making a decision for the new people coming in. But the reality is what happens in that scenario is that if you only get to 1 agenda item a night, then everything else waits, because you've got rules on the board that say this meeting goes to this time. If it's extended, this is how you extend it, and that's that. There's pros and cons to that, and I'm just reminding you about that tonight. So there's certainly a discussion that we could have about that. Castle Rock was one of the examples that Councilman Rohr brought up at that time. They have a place to look. If you want to look that up yourself, it's not hard to find on the internet, and you can get some ideas about that. So the challenge of doing it that way is that potentially, it doesn't mean that we would fall prey to it, but the potential's there that you spend about 1 or 2 to 3 items a night, and everything else just waits. And if our community is happy with that, if that's a decision we make and our community likes living with that, other communities do it. We wouldn't be trendsetters in that. We would just be following things that others have done. So I'm just trying to maybe wrap this up, because this has been a point that keeps coming up and there's definitely some unhappiness about it. And I wish there was a magic wand that I could wave and say we can do it another way and there's no consequences. But my research on it says that you choose one or the other. We've chosen one. We don't seem to be that happy about it. Maybe in the new year or prior to the new year, there's a chance for us to do that. Zoom really changes it. And I think Nancy could comment on this. I mean, we had lots of discussion in my previous 2 years on council. I never felt discussion was an issue. I feel like Zoom is the issue. And Zoom has some pros and cons, but this whole idea that we're not actually interacting. I mean, when I sat on the dais next to people, I felt like there was lots of discussion, and I felt like the Mayor Jure always encouraged that, and I feel like Mayor Graham encourages that. I think the way it happens on Zoom doesn't translate the way I'm used to it happening either. Just some thoughts to maybe hopefully provide some wrap up and some things to talk about, and maybe some decisions that we can make. Maybe something works better for our council.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Wilbrook. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I had one more thing, and both Steve and I received an email from Bob Todd suggesting that we add something about council members' direct access to the city attorney, and maybe putting some appropriate direction on that as well. So just to throw that out, I know in the last council, pretty much nobody except the mayor contacted the city attorney, and now lots of people do, and it's we may want to put channels on that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we've done a pretty thorough job of discussing a thorny topic, and we're gonna come back and revisit this. I do think that taking it in several steps is a good way to approach it. I think people have made a lot of good comments, so I want to thank you for your remarks. Okay. The next item then, let me ask a question here. The next item would be acting on council correspondence. I was wondering if we could do that, do the city administrator's report, and then take a break, and that'd give Judy a chance to set us up for an executive session. Or we could take a break now. I know we've been at it for a while. Is there any opposition to taking to pushing on with council correspondence and the administrator? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and do that.
Mayor,
Yes,
I just have noticed that there has been a hand raised during the SOP discussion. I don't know if you wanted to address that or not, but that's. um,
I think we've gotten beyond that now. So,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Again, that's one of the problems with Zoom. It's hard to, you're not in the same environment, obviously. So I'm sorry. And I am interested in entertaining public comment and so forth. Okay, so we'll go on to council correspondence. Julie, you have your hand raised, so you can start off.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought I heard you say that we're going to go into executive session, and I was going to say, I don't know that I received a link to get into that, but maybe that will happen after this next agenda item.
It did go out, but I can resend it to you.
Yeah, Judy can send the link to you again to anyone who it's necessary. Now, my comment was let's do council correspondence, the city administrator's report, take a break and come back to executive session then. Okay, Julie, did you have anything for council correspondence? Councilor Wolf?
No, thank you. I don't think I did.
Great, thank you. Who'd like to go next? Councilor Wilbrook?
Hey, I just got the same one I think we all got about Metro Bus number 33. That was a pretty detailed email. And I'm just looking forward to hearing from the responses to that, because I felt like it was, I didn't know any of the answers to that.
All right. Anything else? All right, thank you. Councilor Chandler, do you have anything?
No, other than I had the pleasure of meeting today with Reverend Susie Marin and Administrator Howell and Planner Michelle. And we talked about the possibility of finding through the Beehive some temporary shelter for our housing insecure individuals. One of which was featured in an article in the bulletin. So we are working on that to find ways to be innovative and find some housing opportunities in Manitou. It's going to be a hard sell, and there's lots to do, but we came together as a group, and I really want to thank everybody that came to the meeting today, and I think it was very productive. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. That's encouraging. That's nice to hear. Okay, great. Mr. Shada, do you have anything?
No, I don't, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bremner?
Yeah, when I was down by the incline, basically incline, talking to the people down there that are managing the reservations, they said that they've been getting an inordinate number of people coming from the bar trail parking lot over trying to go on the incline. They've been turning them away, telling them that they can't go up the incline if they're parking at the bar trail. I just thought I'd bring that up. I know that the signage is there, up there right on the kiosk saying you can't park there and go to the incline, but apparently people are still doing it. That's all.
Good point, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. And I really don't have anything either unless you want to hear about a backed up sewer line. So I'll pass on that. Let's go on to the city administrator's report. Mr. Cheney?
Yeah, just let you know that the Manitou Avenue paving's going well and the weather's holding up nicely, so it's on time. If you get any complaints about the shuttle being late, it is running late because of that project. So the timelines are not quite working out as we hoped. So they're getting caught up in traffic. So just letting you know the shuttle may not be there as indicated on the schedule for the week. That's all I have. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Denise?
No, I really don't have anything. As you know, we worked on budget nonstop and presented, and I think everybody took Sunday off, so I don't have anything at this time.
Thank you. I see Judy Morgan has her hand raised. Judy?
Yes, I just wanted to let council know that we are live with Civic Clerk, as we've discovered. And starting next week, we will not have Novus. So we really do need to get some training for council just so that everybody's on board and is comfortable using Civic Clerk. And just a question that had come into us earlier in the week, Documents on Demand, which is the button on the front page of our website that talks about documents. That is actually our, where we locate all of our archived documents. And so all the previous meetings are located there. So if you're worried about Novus going away and not having access to Novus, those packets and agendas and all that, it's all there already on our website.
Okay,
Wanted
great.
to make sure everybody knew about that.
Great. Thank you very much. And Judy, if people have problems with Civic Clerk, the new software, who should they contact for help?
We contact our office. Amber's actually the one that's been managing most of the, well, most all of the Civic,
Okay.
doing the trainings for everybody. So she's our resident expert.
Okay, so if we need a lifeline, it's Amber. Okay, already. Counselor Wolf?
Oh, thank you. I don't know if anybody besides us is on Zoom right now, but if so, I just wanted to put a shout out to the Armadillo Ranch. They provided our lunch that we purchased lunch at the budget meeting from them on Saturday. And it was the first time I'd ever ordered, I forget what they call it, some kind of Italian sandwich hoagie. And being somewhat of a Bostonian snob where those are very famous, I didn't have high expectations and it was really yummy. And so I just want to tell everyone out there to check out the Armadillo. They have some great sandwiches, and thank you for staff for providing our lunch that day.
Thank you. Yeah, staff, thank you for the support that you provided for the offsite budget meeting. That's a good point. Thank you. Okay, so the last item, Denise?
Mayor, I'm sorry. I sent all of you an email, but I do need to publicly recognize Megan too for all the work. I did not mention that on Saturday, and she did a tremendous amount of work to make the budget happen and the presentation. So I do want to give a shout out to Megan and all of her hard work too.
Great, thank you. Well, I think that concludes the city administrator report then. So we have one last item of business this evening. That's an executive session. So I'd like to go ahead and read a description. And then if we could entertain a motion, assuming that motion it passes, we'll take a break and then come back to executive session. So the executive session. An executive session for the purpose of considering the purchase or sale of property for public purpose pursuant to section 5.1B of the Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter, and for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators pursuant to section 5.1D of the Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter. This executive session shall be to discuss the status and potential disposition of property partially owned by the city of Manitou Springs with an address of 9650 Volma Road, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Do I have a motion for executive session?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. And
I'll second that.
okay, great, thank you. We actually have seconds from Councilors Chandler and Wolf, so motion passes. Thank you.
Take a vote, please.
Okay, so Judy, we'll give you a chance. We'll go ahead and leave this meeting. We'll come back. Let's see, I've got 7:42. You want to say?
Mayor,
We still need to vote.
I'm
Well, I
sorry.
can't-
I don't think you took a vote on the last motion. You just got a vote in a second. I don't think you voted on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it that late? I guess not. Okay, my apologies. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right, okay, great. Thanks for keeping me honest. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see, I've got 7:42. If we came back maybe at 5 of 8, would that be okay? Give us a little over 10 minutes.
Did I miss a new link for the executive session? Or
I will be sending, I did send it out to you, Jeff, but I will go ahead and send out that
oh, I
link
apologize. I got it right here. I apologize. I just thought.
to all council and to you and to Denise. And so everybody who, my expectation of who's going in that. So if we can just get some clarification. So I'll be in at the front end of it just to make sure everybody gets into the meeting. I don't know if you want me to stay in it or not, just let me know. I'm going to make sure that Roy and Denise and Jeff have the link. And I also have a Ken James.
Right. Mr. James, yeah.
I was told to also give that link to. Was there anyone else that I need to provide that to that you know of?
Just council, I believe.
Did you send that link out just to the city government email? Is that where I find it?
You know, typically I do include both of your addresses on there, Councilor Wolf, just because I know you use both of them quite a bit. So I will go ahead and do that this time. I will be sending it out again.
Oh, thanks. Okay. Thank you.
Judy, will I be able to call in because my speakers are not working? Can I call in?
You should be able to. Yeah, you should have that ability.
Actually, then, since you've been working pretty hard, you want to just come back at 8 o'clock even? 8 o'clock even sound okay? Okay, so we'll see you all at 8 o'clock in the executive session. Thank you very much.